The GT3 has for a long time been a go-to class within sim racing, but there is not only one GT3 car, there are multiples, and this is where a thing called balance of performance comes in. I'm going to be taking these cars through 3 different tests to find out what's the best overall car and find out what's the best car for you for 2023. For the first test, we're going to be finding out the straight line speed, and for this we're heading to Daytona International Speedway, as the cars will be reaching their max speed down the back straight. And in 7th place we have the Mercedes-AMG coming in at 282.4 kilometers an hour. Now, why exactly the Mercedes is so much off in a straight line, I don't exactly know, but since these GT3 cars won't necessarily be hitting their max speed at many circuits, this won't really matter too much, and we'll find out how the Mercedes performs in later tests. Coming in at 6th place is the Porsche at 283.5 kilometers an hour. Now, the Porsche has never really been known to have great straight line speed. The Porsche is more of a car to perform better in corners, and again, we'll see that in the later tests. Coming in 5th place, we have the BMW at 284.8 kilometers an hour, and very slightly faster than that we have the Lamborghini at 285.0. It's almost crazy to me how close to each other these two cars are, considering how different they are. The Lamborghini is more of a nimble car, where the BMW is a huge heavy boat. We move up about half a kilometer an hour to find the Ferrari at 285.5, which is quite notorious considering the Ferrari is known for being one of the fastest cars at tracks like Le Mans, which have long straight lines, but you know, it is what it is. As we move to the top 2, it's quite remarkable how close these cars are. Coming in 2nd place, we have the Audi at 286.1 kilometers an hour. This is quite remarkable considering that it is basically the same car as the Lamborghini, but it's still 1.1 kilometers an hour faster in a straight line. And the fastest GT3 in a straight line on low downforce setup is the McLaren at 286.2 kilometers an hour, exactly 0.1 kilometers an hour faster than the Audi. You know, as interesting as this might be, as I said, the GT3 cars won't be hitting their max speed at many circuits, but it's just a little interesting statistic for test 1. As we move on to the 2nd test, we find ourselves at Hungaro. We will only be using the pit exit, as we're going to be testing the acceleration of the individual cars off the line and whenever they get further into the acceleration zone. The way this test is going to work is that we're going to be starting from the pits, accelerating to 2 different lines. Now, these lines are quite far apart, so we'll be taking the speed of the first line and the second line and then averaging them together and seeing which one has the overall best acceleration. And coming in last place, we have the Ferrari at an average of 117 kilometers an hour. Now, the main thing that hurts the Ferrari is the initial off-the-line acceleration, as the Ferrari is about 3 to 5 kilometers an hour slower at the first line. Now, coming in 6th place, we have the Lamborghini at an average of 119 kilometers an hour. Now, this is not necessarily bad. It's as far off the fastest one as the Ferrari is off the Lamborghini. In 5th place, we have the Audi at a slightly faster average speed of 119.5 kilometers an hour. Now, this is probably because these cars are built on the same chassis, so they're very similar to each other. As we move up the order, we have 3 cars that all hit an average of 120 kilometers an hour. These are the McLaren, the BMW, and the Porsche. Now, the interesting thing is that these cars didn't hit the same speeds at the same lines. The McLaren was significantly slower at the first line, but it gained back the time and went significantly faster at the second line. Meanwhile, the BMW was right in the middle of those 2 cars at the first and the second line, so it averages out to give the same average speed. As we're going through the cars in the acceleration test, we find out that the slowest car in the straight line speed is actually the fastest car on the acceleration test. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Mercedes-AMG is the fastest car in acceleration, clocking up an impressive 121 kilometers an hour average speed. The Mercedes matched the Porsche right off the line at 55 kilometers an hour and almost matched the McLaren at the second line at 187 kilometers an hour. So to conclude the second test, the Ferrari comes in 4 kilometers an hour off the Mercedes and 2 kilometers an hour off the Lamborghini. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the test you've all been waiting for. We pack our bags and we head to Barcelona for the 3rd test, the fastest lap time. We'll be testing each of the 7 cars around Barcelona National Circuit on the fixed setup, as this will give us a pretty good understanding of where the car is on pace. This is because Barcelona both has slow speed corners, medium speed corners, fast speed corners, and direction changes, and coming in at last place we have the Mercedes with a 109.731. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of seasons the Mercedes has gone from being the fastest GT3 car to being the slowest by a bunch. As a little bonus, I also did 5-lap runs in each car to test the tire wear of each car. Now this won't matter too much as you'll very likely be changing tires each stint, but you can see here on the screen I put the lowest and the highest wear after 5 laps. Coming in 6th place at almost 1.5 tenths faster than the Mercedes is the BMW on a 109.605. The BMW has always been very notorious for being different than the other GT3 cars, and this is because it is a very heavy driving experience, meanwhile it still feels very on rails. It's really hard to explain how the BMW drives if you haven't tried it yourself, but let me say it like this. It is one of the easier GT3 cars to drive in races. Coming in 5th place with a 109.591 is the Porsche. Now this is strange because last season this was the fastest car. To me it almost looks like iRacing is taking the BOP and then just flipped it upside down for a moment, maybe to try and give some variety in what people drive, but definitely 3 of the fastest cars over the last couple of seasons are now ranking as the 3 slowest. Now the driving characteristics haven't changed too much from last season. It's still very good on mid-corner rotation and decent on brakes, and it's still decently bad over curbs as well. Taking a spot in the middle of the pack, we have the McLaren with a 109.563. Now this is not bad considering this car ranked 2nd and 1st in the 2 other tests, so coming in mid-pack will give it some consistent results for the overall points at the end. Oh yeah, and did I forget to mention that we're going to be giving double points for the 3rd test, meaning the fastest car gets 14 points instead of 7. As we move over to the podium positions, we have the Audi in 3rd place with a 109.417. Now if I've got to be honest, I've never really liked the handling characteristics of the Audi. This was mainly because I felt the rear end was a little bit too loose. Now they have slightly fixed that on the Audi, which made it a little bit more enjoyable to drive in my opinion, but it still is a decently hard car to drive. Coming in 2nd place, we have the Ferrari with a 109.401. Now I know you Ferrari lovers love to hear this because the Ferrari is actually decently competitive again. As always, taking the Ferrari to the track was an easy endeavor. The Ferrari is by far the easiest and most comfortable GT3 car to drive. This is because it doesn't have too much oversteer. The only problem I find with it is that it understeers a little bit, especially mid-corner, but you can kind of get around that if you use your trail braking enough. Coming in at the 1st place in the lap times and scoring an impressive 14 points on this test alone. The Lamborghini drives similar to the Audi, but it's just a bit more comfortable. It's a bit more stable on the rear end, and it still has that mid-corner rotation that you really want to go fast. Overall, I feel like the Lamborghini is a very enjoyable driving experience, and it does do it favors that it looks so absolutely great. As we take a look at the results of the 3rd and the final test, we can see that the 3 fastest cars are very close on lap time, but as soon as you drop outside of that, you will get cars that are either off pace or decently hard to handle. As we add up the points and look at the final results, we see that the McLaren GT3 is the best overall GT3 car. That is, if you can keep it on track. You know, what's interesting is these statistics might be the McLaren being the fastest car as an example. It is a hard car to keep on track. Therefore, my recommendation for most of the season would be cars like the Lamborghini, because it is way easier to keep on track and it's still up there on pace. In fact, it's actually faster than McLaren in the fastest lap time test. I think the point that I'm trying to get across is that whatever you're most comfortable with, other than the Mercedes, is probably also what you're going to be fastest in, and therefore I think you should go with that. If you did enjoy this video, like and subscribe. I've been Marcus, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.